This time, I'd like to call the roll for the Administrative Services Committee meeting for August 6, 2018.
Councilor Corradino.
Here.
Councilor Demasi.
Here.
Councilor Hill.
Here.
Councilor Tesorio.
Here.
Councilor Wilmot.
Here. Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 16th, 2018 committee meeting? Councilor Hill, Councilor Tesorio. Please call.
Okay. Councilor Corradino.
Yes.
Councilor Demasi.
Yes.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Tesorio.
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes. Thank you. At this time, is there any old business to attend to in this committee? Seeing none, moving right along to the first item under communication. City Attorney Kevin Caracoli received a purchase contract from Robert P. Barcy to purchase 326 East 9th Street as is. Counselor?
Good evening. This is a direct solicitation pursuant to the city's property disposition guidelines. This is a very next door neighbor to the property that was obtained by the city as a result of a tax foreclosure matter. So this was unsolicited by the city, but obviously it's been vacant. This neighbor's been keeping an eye on it. I received a phone call. I believe the mayor did as well. I got back to the gentleman and said, understand you're right next door neighbor. What are your intentions? And he said, look at it. It's the property right next door to me. I want to make sure that it's maintained. It's in pretty decent shape, but it's been left to be neglected for a few years. I want to take care of it. I want to own it and build it up and make sure I can control who's in it. And I said, well, send us a proposal and I'll bring it before the council. That's the process. That's one of essentially three ways to do it. So he prepared a purchase contract, and contract is for $18,500. I did review this with code enforcement folks, and they said, I don't want to misquote them, but they said something to the effect, take that all day long and go with it. It's a very good offer. It's a solid offer, and I don't know the exact condition of the property. I'm being told that it needs some work, particularly on the inside. I think I provided you perhaps with some photographs. If not, if you've gone by the house, you know what it looks like. In any event, that's presenting it to this council for consideration at this time. Again, consistent with our guidelines. This is one of probably at least a half a dozen properties that we're going to be proposing and disposing of, bringing to the council in the next several meetings. I've been working with the code office. Some of them are like this, direct solicitation. Some of them will be offered by way of either public auction or sealed bid solicitations. This just happened to be somewhat unique because it is the very next door neighbor that's made this inquiry, and at least from my perspective, a fairly solid offer. So I offer it for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our city attorney at this point?
I have one question.
Yes, Councilor Tesorio.
Kevin, I know we have do we still have a local realtor on retainer that we deal with, or?
I believe that, it's a good question, I believe that contract is technically expired.
Okay.
I know in talking with the code department that there was a thought and a desire to see if the city could, frankly, market and sell these properties. Not trying to cut anybody out of business. This is a bit of a sore subject. I'll be candid with the real estate committee and community. But if from my perspective, the city's got a fiduciary duty to make sure that taxpayer money is spent well. And so any amount that can be saved by way of saving a commission or other costs, selling properties as is, requiring a property owner to actually do all the legwork, that's at least my focus. It's certainly in your purview if you wish to revisit placing these properties in the hands of a realtor. That's certainly something that we can discuss. But right now, those contracts have technically expired.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Certainly, I know in the past couple of years we've had instances like this, and you might say the best place to sell a house is the next door neighbor. I mean, I think we can all agree if you buy a house next to your house, you're not going to turn it into a dump. So I think having the next door neighbor buy it is certainly a win-win for everybody, the neighborhood, the city, and the homeowner next door. So are there any other issues, comments? Yes, Councilor.
Just a question. I think we really need these properties to be picked up, so I'm happy with that. But do we ever generally come back in with a counteroffer, even if it's only $1,000 or $1,500? Do we ever do that, or
Sure.
just to try and? I mean,
We did, and I forgive me because I don't recall the timing. If you were on the council at the time, but if you recall, there was property out on Johnson Road. And it sold for much less than this. It was vacant land, but we did go back and forth a few times and provided a counteroffer, and we ultimately agreed to a price. Candidly, in this circumstance with this offer, I certainly thought it was pretty solid. The code folks that have been actually in the house and looked at it said, yeah, this, jump on it.
okay, perfect.
So
Okay.
that's why it's being presented as
right.
is, without any, counter offers to
Okay.
consider.
All right, very good.
Fair enough. Yep.
Thank you. I see there's a hand up here in the audience.
No, because the city owns it, and so has had title to the property. I'm not exactly sure how long, but it was purchased as a result of back taxes owed. So the city has title to it, and the individual would be taking title to, to what the city has. Yeah.
All right, very good. Any other issues, discussion points? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Councilor DeMasi, Councilor Tesorario. Please call the roll.
Councilor Corradino,
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi,
Yes.
Councilor Hill,
Yes.
Councilor Tesorario,
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot,
Yes.
All right, moving on to the next item. The city clerk's office received an application from JWJ Industries Incorporated for a 2018 solid waste license. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that from the city clerk's office?
Just the late entry. Just the late entry for a solid waste license. They'll expire every year, just like all the others.
And it's at a cost of $500?
$500 in traffic credit.
They don't get a discount for half a year? Okay. That's the way to run business. You can do it. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Councilor Hill, Councilor DeMasi. Please call the roll.
Councilor Corradino,
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi,
Yes.
Councilor Hill,
Yes.
Councilor Tesorario,
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item. The Oswego City County Youth Bureau received a proposal from Playland Amusements Incorporated for a merry-go-round amusement ride for the annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony on December 1st, 2018, and request Mayor Barlow be authorized to sign the agreement. Is there anyone here to speak to this tonight? Councilor Tesorario?
I'll just say one thing. I did work with the Youth Bureau on the location as far as where they want to put it. It will fit in the Civic Plaza. As far as street closure, there will be no additional street closure for that. I guess the idea would be the support of, everybody that I've talked to said that it would support the weight of what it would be. And that's the only thing I've got to say about that. That's the only thing, that's my involvement in it.
So they're talking about the west end of the plaza?
West end of the plaza, yes.
Okay. Any other comments in regards to this? I'd like to ask the city attorney to step in here for a moment. It's like a mind reader. He knew I was going to ask.
How did I know that was going to...
Mr. Caracoli, I'd like you to speak to the contract. It's not really labeled as a contract, but it's a letter that they sent us.
Well, like a proposal. Well, there are a few things. I think Councilor Tesorerio touched on one of them, which is the weight of this and how that impacts our infrastructure out there. I think there's got to be a recognition that the structural integrity of the plaza will be preserved, and that I certainly recommend that there be some insurance in place to cover not only that, but anybody that it's an attractive nuisance. It will be. It's going to be set up 2 to 4 days ahead of time. There's always concerns there. I didn't see where there's going to be 24/7 security, if you will, or restrictions on it. So I'd like to see that if the council does approve it, and I'm not dissuading you against it. I think it's anything to enhance the event is a great thing, but certainly to make sure that there's adequate insurance coverage in place, that there's provision for reimbursement. I think that's the other issue. If we're putting money down, or that's the proposal. I mean, if the event doesn't occur, what are the parameters for receiving our money back? If it's not our fault in canceling it, so I'd like that those provisions shored up a little bit more. I think we can get there. Those are generally the 3 areas: insurance coverage, reimbursement of our down payment, and sufficient recognition by the company that they will leave the plaza the way they found it.
All right. Yes, Councilor.
My biggest concern, you see and hear different things at amusement parks that have gone on with being dead of winter. It could be a blizzard, things freezing up. I don't know, are we dropping anything to save money there, or is it just, are we still having the horse and carriage rides? I wish somebody was here to explain the difference, because I don't know that we need to spend this kind of money without seeing what we're already offering. They do a beautiful job now. I'm just not sure about this.
Yeah, I agree. I was hoping that somebody would have been here from
Me too.
the city county youth. Maybe Councilor Tesorerio can enlighten us.
Yeah, Jen Lacerda, who's in charge of this, couldn't make it tonight because she had to work. This is something that they've, looked at for months now. There is something they're dropping and adding this. So this is an additional attraction compared to what they had last year.
So you mean like the 4,000, does it really cost more?
No, it
Or-
does not. It's the
So
same-
if they're dropping something,
It's the same price we paid last year.
so they don't have it in their budget from the beginning?
They haven't, it's the same budget as of last year.
Then why did we have to take it out of the general fund?
Well, we had to take it out of the general fund last year also. So I can't say that it was budgeted. Her budget's only,
It wasn't.
it wasn't,
Wasn't
yeah,
bu-
it wasn't
wasn't on
budgeted.
it.
Her budget's very low.
Right.
When we do this Christmas tree lighting, it generally comes out of, and maybe Rob
Maybe I
can
can
explain it
clarify,
better.
since
Yeah.
John and I have been here the longest, he
Yeah.
and I could probably... It just, 2 years ago, we were brought to this committee a proposal to have artificial ice. So that was, 2 years ago was the big attraction.
Right.
And then last year, it was the reindeer, and also there was a hayride, I believe, and you were part of that, I remember that.
Never took the ride.
Not the hayride, but part of the festivities on stage.
Yes.
So I mean, there's different events, and again, you can speak to this better than I probably, but I mean, the whole idea is to draw people to downtown on that day. Hopefully, it's a nice day on December 1st, and you know, there'll be Santa Claus like there always is here in the Rotunda.
great.
And they want to have this merry-go-round, but I still would like to know if they're going to do the hayride, if they're going to do something else. So that's why it would be helpful if somebody was here. Now, my question is, if we table this or don't have action on this, can we wait another 2 weeks? I mean, this is December 1 is the timetable, and it's only middle of October or August by the time we get to this in 2 weeks. So my question is, I have more questions, and the counselor here can't answer those.
Yeah, and I don't, I mean, I'm just looking at the letter, and it says that down 50% must be paid by, on or before October 1st, so that's certainly,
Plenty of
to
time.
me, that seems like there's time, but I don't know if they've got other events that are lined up that we're competing with. It's not necessarily my concern, and I don't know, so...
There might be a big demand for merry-go-rounds in December. Who knows?
You're asking my opinion, I'd give it to you, but if you have questions that need answers, I think you need the answers first.
I think based on the contract, there's questions of negotiating and putting better language in there to protect us, and also there's questions on whether what's going to be presented at this event. I think it's in our best interest to maybe table it.
And I'm happy to, so that we're not losing additional time concurrent with the next time we consider this, if it's the next committee meeting, reaching out directly to the amusement folks and you know, getting those answers and seeing what they
And hopefully we can get a
generally-
representative from the Youth Bureau to come.
Yep, and insurance policy and some of the other...
Sure.
And then I'll work with Commissioner or whoever else with respect to what's, you know, what's underground and what could be potentially compromised out there by the weight of this thing. And,
Make sure they run good in the snow, in the freezing ice. I mean, it's not normal.
look, there's a city official who will remain nameless, but she was concerned about little kids sticking their tongues out on the, you know, having a scene from A Christmas Story where it's played. I only said to her that that's part of growing up.
Thank you for those words of wisdom, Counselor. Can I have a motion to table? Motion. Counselor Tesorio, Counselor DeMasi, to table. Can I have a vote to table?
Counselor Corradino.
Yes to table.
Counselor DeMasi.
Yes to table.
Counselor Hill.
Yes to table.
Counselor Tesorio.
Yes to table.
Counselor Wilmot.
Yes to table. Okay, moving on to the next item under discussion from the Mayor's Office. Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests a transfer of funds from the Enterprise Contingent Account G.1990.0460 in the amount of $25,000 to the Sanitary Sewers Contracted Services G.8120.0440 for residential sewer connections for 4 properties along State Route 104. The mayor was unable to speak to this as he's out of town and he's driving back as we speak. So he's asked me to say a few words and then we can open it up to some other people. I see Mr. Johnson from the engineering office is here, so he could probably chime in on some other things. But essentially, as we all know, the consent decree work that we've been doing in the city for a number of years is the whole idea of the project is separate the sanitary sewers from the storm sewers to make sure that we don't have any sewage going into our rivers or lake. And during the course of that work, they identified 4 homes on 104. Those are the 4 houses that are just to the east of Fajita Grill. Between Fajita Grill and the forks of the road, there's 4 houses that I'm not sure how long they've been there, but since day one, they were hooked up to a pipe that was not directly connected to our sanitary sewage system. So because of that, we have a decision to make. Those houses have been identified also by the DEC as a problem. And the DEC, as I think Mr. Johnson will tell you, they don't fool around. And once they identify a problem in a community, they expect it to be taken care of in a timely manner. So we have these houses that need to be hooked up to the sewer. The DPW has already done the preliminary work. The work for the laterals were already put in from 104 directly to the front lawns of the houses. So what we're talking about here is, now that the lateral pipes are in the ground, right in front of the houses, the homeowners need to hook up to those pipes so their sewage is going into the sewage system. So what we're trying to discuss and come up with an answer is, the mayor is asking us to transfer from the contingent account from the enterprise fund for consent decree into this fund to pay for that work. I did meet with a plumber today and to get a ballpark price, and of course this is a ballpark, but without going into the house, because currently the houses have pipes going out the back of the house into the bad pipe. It's called the bad pipe, and they're going to have to move the pipe and go to the front of the house. So according to this plumber, we're talking about anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 worth of work that could be done. So there's 4 houses. Let's say it was on the high end, $3,000 apiece. So that's $12,000 we're talking about that the city, and that's what we're talking about here, is whether we as the city should pay for that or we should make the homeowners pay for it. So that's sort of the background and the gist of the history of this. Is there any comments or questions from the councilors first on this? Councilor Tesorario.
Yes, I think this is, we've had countless amount of circumstances where this has happened before. And what precedent did we set then? Did we pay for it? Did we not pay for it? We made the homeowner pay for it. I mean, this could open up a huge can of worms where we're saying, okay, and we're going to have countless amount of more of these. Harbor Brook could be a situation where we have to do this. I mean, I don't know the precedent that has been set. Maybe, Mr. Johnson can elaborate on that, but from my time as plumbing inspector, I know that we made people at their own expense have to, tie into their own, the laterals that we provided, whether it was shared or wherever it went. So I just don't know if we're making the right decision here. And I guess I got to have, maybe Kevin can explain legally if this could come back to haunt us, if we decide to allocate this money to allow these people, to pay for these people's sewer connections. I don't know. So I guess I'd have to have more information.
All right, thank you. Councilor Wilmot.
Yeah, I guess my question is, this proposal, the $25,000, we're not necessarily saying that the city is going to be responsible for the monies. What we're doing is trying to get the problem fixed right now. Is that correct?
Well, as the proposal's written, and that's in your tablet now, it's to pay for it and for them not to reimburse the city. We have options. I mean, this is the point of discussing this at committee. We can, again, the option is the city could pay for the approximately $13,000 worth of hookups for the 4 properties. We could send a letter, as Mr. Johnson discussed with me earlier today. If we say that the homeowner should do it, then we send them a letter giving them 60 or 90 days to hook up, and it's at their expense. If they don't hook up, then we go to step 2. There is a third option that we briefly discussed, is $3,000 to repair your sewer line could be considered a large expense for a homeowner, and to send them a letter and ask them to come up with $3,000 in 60 days, 60 or 90 days might be a little punitive. So another option, and I discussed this with City Chamberlain, which has been done before, we could do this as a special assessment for those 4 houses. The city could, because it's a DEC, it's been alerted to the DEC, we want to do this as fast as possible, and the pipes are already there as far as the city's job, we could hire somebody to do the work, pay for the work, and then have it create a special assessment for those 4 houses where they would pay it back on their taxes, and it could be, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, we decide. That way, the work gets done right away, but the homeowner, property owner still eventually pays for it.
Right.
In their taxes. So that's another option that actually Councilor Wilmot came up with last week in our discussions. So those are some of the options. Maybe there's another option I haven't thought of. Councilor McBurney.
I just wanted to clarify, so the DEC is holding the city on the hook for the responsibility to ensure that this is done in a timely fashion.
Well, to be more specific, the DEC was alerted by a homeowner
Right.
of the issue. And we didn't alert them. They were already alerted, so we're already on the radar. But they have not come and sent us a letter saying that we have to do anything right now with those pieces of property.
Right. I'm sorry, let me be more specific. So the DEC ordinarily holds the municipality responsible, not the homeowner. That's what I meant.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
So if it would be in our interest then to make sure that it's done in such a manner that we control how it's done and when, so we can make sure that it's...
Well,
I think the idea of the special assessment has some value because it allows the city to take care of getting the work done, determining that it's done correctly, and knows that it's settled what the DEC requirements are.
I see Mr. Johnson's up here, and he's waiting to explain something. So let's listen to him.
I'd just like to explain the position we're in, okay? We're obligated to correct the situation. All right, so, we can go over, as far as the DE is concerned, we can go over and truncate the sewer that they're hooked into. And we're done. They don't care.
I see.
But we have an obligation to citizens too, and so trying to make it a painless situation and be in compliance with our speedies permit and the consent decree order, trying to work it out so that, the people don't get saddled with a big bill right off the bat. And if you give them a utility tax, somebody might say, well, I've got the $3,000, I'll pay it right now. Somebody else might say, that's good with me, I'll pay $300 a year for 10 years.
Right.
So those are the options. Third option, according to our charter, they're obligated to pay. If we have a sewer within 100 feet of their property, they have to pay and hook it up. And we can give them 90 days and do that. So that's kind of a strong arm option. But as long as the properties go into compliance, that's the main issue. And Mr. Tesorio is correct that this is going to reoccur on the east side because we've already done a report for the east side. And there are as many as 17 lateral services over there that we're going to be directed to remove. So whatever you decide will be pretty much the path that you're going to take to the east side too. And then any other time that we discover something like this.
All right. Anybody have any questions while Bob's standing there? Or?
Oh, not for Bob.
Okay, but you have a comment?
In general.
Oh, you have a... Go ahead. Go ahead, Councilor.
I feel that they have to be able to pay for their own, and being able to give them the option to spread it over time is the right thing to do it. I think it's a great way. If they want to pay up front or whatever, it'd be the great thing. Because the bottom line is, the DEC tells us we have to fix the problem. They don't tell us we have to pay to replace for homeowners or anything. We could just cap it, whatever they have to do. So really, the DEC can't direct us to pay to have that done, is what I understand from it. So the best option is to give them those options. And, we can't afford to do this. Problems are going to come up down the road also.
All right. Councilor Tesorio.
Councilor Tomasi, my problem with that is we've set precedent to have people have to pay to separate before, and we've never paid it or we never gave them time. How do we say that we're going to now all of a sudden, come across with this service on the city's back when we haven't ever done it. We've
Because
never
we're much
done it.
nicer counselors and we have feelings and heart.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I agree
So
with
we
you.
can make a change right now.
I agree with you, but
And they're still going to pay it in the long run.
they're going to pay it in the long run.
Because some really cannot afford to do that at this time.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I'm just, there's other problems that are going to happen. My ward alone, I know I've got shared services, and we're going to have to make them separate. Several. I mean, I've got countless amount of, I know, issues. So are we going to offer that same service to them, is what I'm asking.
I don't know why we would not come up. And we may not want to spread it out over 10 years, maybe 5 years, have it a little higher of an amount, that we can do it where it could be affordable for the city. I don't think we need to spread it out over 10 years.
All right,
I think 5 years would be fine.
I'm just trying to say that if this comes back, and it will, that we're going to offer the same service to the ones, not just what Bob's talking about with Harbor Brook, but all the shared services that are in the city, that we're going to make them, by law, separate. Okay, we're going to give them the same option.
All right, well noted. Councilor Tesorerio has pointed it out that whatever we decide here could be the precedent. I see there's a comment in the front of the audience there.
I have a question. With those houses over there, how long have they been there? How long have they been hooked up? And who's responsible for actually making it incorrect hookup? I do know that in the past, trying to find who's responsible for hooking up houses to the laterals, and sometimes they don't get hooked up. Is that the city's responsibility? Is that a plumber's responsibility? Is the plumbing inspector's responsibility to make sure that those things are done correctly? And if those houses have been there as long as I think they've been there, I can't see, and if the people that own those houses had no knowledge that they were hooked up improperly, I don't think in the case of fairness that they should be held responsible for the fairness. I know what the code says. Yeah, you can strong arm them and tell them they've got to do it. There are people that don't have the money to pay for it, to have that done. I wouldn't want them to pay $3,000 or $4,000 to hook up to something like that. And I think in all fairness, yes, you will probably have more in the areas that you're indicating. But I think this is a case of fairness as to whether people were aware of it, how long it's been there, and who was responsible for the incorrect hookup to start with. And that's where the responsibility for payments should go.
Very good points, Mr. Holman. As the oldest member of the council, I can tell you when they were built, I was there about 90 years ago. Only kidding. 90, yeah. They've been there a long time, and based on my conversation with the water commissioner and Mr. Johnson, it was almost the norm years ago that many of the pipes, the sewer pipes in the city, weren't really connected properly to a sewage system, and it's a terrible thing to say, but a lot of it was going into the river or the lake, and of course we're working very hard and diligently to correct those situations from years past. But I see there's another question next to you, or a comment.
Rob, you look really good. I agree with Councilman. I mean, you have to give these people who are taking this hit some kind of reasonable time frame, even if it's 3 years. And if they can't pay it and they're late, are you really going to put late fees on top of that? I mean, you're not really trying to punish them for something that's really a crappy situation. We have to make it right, and we have to help them.
Right.
We have to make it right, and obviously we're obligated, but we have to help them do it. And if it forces the houses don't look particularly affluent, if it forces somebody into foreclosure, nobody wins.
All right, very good. I'd like to ask the City Chamberlain a question, if I could. Somebody just brought up a good question. If they were assessed, let's say it cost $3,000 and we did it over a 10-year period and it was $300 assessed, that special assessment on their taxes, I mean, they'd have to pay all their taxes. If they did not pay the $300, they'd be in violation of their taxes and they would be subject to foreclosure. I'd be glad to hear any other options you have for this committee. Just to muddy the waters here, let's have options D and E.
That was an intentional pun, wasn't it? This is a great discussion. First of all, Mr. Johnson's absolutely correct. This is a consent order. We are what's called a POTW, a publicly owned treatment works, right? So it's in the charter, it's in the statute. You look it up, and there are obligations as a publicly owned treatment works, and we are under consent by the DEC. So it's almost like, you want to pay my taxes, great. The Chamberlain doesn't care where the payment comes from. It just knows that it's come in and they've charged it to my property and all's good. Similar situation, the city's on the hook with the DEC because we are a POTW. And so the DEC doesn't care how the work gets done or who pays for it. They just want to make sure that it's done and done properly. So that's the first issue. Secondly, there is always a concern with the precedential effect of something like this. We do, and it's recognized, we have many, many other properties that have this similar situation that we're going to be, addressing in the near future. The third issue, but I think, I could make a distinction in this particular case because we are under a consent order and we have to have it done. So that, I think, does set it apart from some of the others, possibly. I mean, let's hold that argument for a minute. But the third point is that we always have to be careful as a municipality, any municipality does, with giving an unconstitutional gift, right? So you cannot provide public money to benefit a private property or property owner. The city can't plow a private road or build a private road for somebody. That's constitutionally prohibited. So the argument can be made that we install these sewer hookups with public money for private property. We could run afoul of and have a constitutional issue. So how does that play into everything? And recognizing that there are more properties, I always try to look at the practical side of things. Maybe it doesn't work in this particular example completely, but with these 4 properties, I'm going to put that into perspective. 2 of them are rental properties. Nothing against rentals, but 2 of them are rental properties, so they're income-producing properties. 1 is for sale, and any lawyer that's on the other side of a sale is going to want to make sure that all taxes and all expenses for that property are paid, so that when the buyer receives it, they're buying it free and clear of all obligations. And then 1 is a private homeowner. Okay, so just to put that into perspective for what it's worth. There is an option under the New York State real property tax law. I have to look to make sure that it covers things other than real property taxes. I believe it does, and I think it could cover this situation. It's similar to what the county does when there are back taxes owed. They allow for an installment contract to be paid. And under state law, it does allow for up to, I believe it's up to 2 years of installments. It can be paid monthly, it can be paid quarterly, semi-annual, or annual. That's up to the municipality to decide. It does come with an interest rate that's charged. It's not a very favorable rate, I can tell you that. It's 12%. And that's what the county charges. But they're under, their hands are tied, so to speak, because if you're going to enter into an installment payment, you have to pay that 12% charge, and that's calculated up front and figured into the payments. So in the county's case, they allow 4 semi-annual payments over a 24-month period. Again, I think you can shorten that up. I'm not sure that you can lengthen it to the 3 years. And I think the City Chamberlain has some concerns with it going out maybe beyond a year. But we can work on that. And I guess the final point, Cordino and I have been having some discussions, and I did add a provision that I don't know that you've seen yet, but which would authorize as part of this resolution, in addition to the money being transferred, because again, I think it does have to get done, the work has to get done. But in addition to authorizing the transfer, further authorizing the establishment of a policy whereby the owners of the properties affected would be invoiced for the cost, and thereafter those costs, if not recovered, would become an additional charge of the, to be placed on the real property tax bill. I mean, that's what we talked about, or establishing it as a an installment payment. And even that has some provisions in it. If you defaulted, right, on that contract, it then ultimately goes back on your taxes. So one way or the other, we as a taxing authority will recover that money, and I think we have to recover that money, again, to clear the constitutional hurdle of unwarranted gifting. But there's some leeway in policies that can be established to make that hit a little softer for the property owner that, I guess perhaps arguably through no fault of their own, they weren't aware. Last point I'll make, and it's more just interesting because I learned it only recently in talking with our former city engineer, and that is up until 1969 and into the 70s. Mr. Johnson knows this full well, but in the creation of the east and the west side treatment facilities, the city of Oswego was directly discharging all sewage into the rivers and lakes. 1969, 1970, up until the 80s. And frankly, well, I don't want to editorialize too much, but we are under a consent order for $88 million and counting. So it's important that we address these things when they become known, however they become known. And I think addressing it now and finding solutions that recognize some of the fiscal impact to the property owners affected will hopefully, establish a precedent that we can apply consistently for everyone, and not just these 4 property owners.
So to summarize, the last time you were talking about, you had prepared a revised resolution for me.
Yes.
And as city attorney, and based on what you just said about gifting and that, is this an option that you would recommend?
Well, yeah, and it is general. I'll admit that, and I'll read it for everyone's benefit. And the last resolved paragraph would be that the Common Council hereby authorizes the establishment of a policy whereby the owners of the 4 properties are invoiced for the cost of the residential sewer connections, and thereafter said costs, if unrecovered, shall become an additional charge of the property tax bill for each such property. Again, within that, I think we can shape that policy to accommodate installment payments, contracts, things of that nature, that hopefully softens the financial blow for those property owners that can't just afford to shell out the $3 or the $4 grand that it's going to cost to make these changes.
All right, very good. Any comments on this particular? Yes, Councilor Hill.
I was going to stay quiet on this one, and I actually will be abstaining from the vote. The one residential home is a relative, not a immediate, it's an aunt. So there is a connection there, same last name, so I felt it best to abstain. But I think Mr. Holman hit on the, what I think the appropriate question is, where does the liability or negligence for this issue lie? And if it lies on the part of the city, where is it reasonable to make the homeowner bear the cost for an error that they had no control over, no knowledge of, and whether or not we're going to be forced to pay it in the future should be irrelevant to what the right thing to do is. I mean, if we made the mistake as a municipality, shouldn't we be the ones who are obligated to fix it? And, it's hard for me to do this because everyone's looking at me going, well, he has a vested interest in this question, but it just seems reasonable. And, if the mayor didn't think this was reasonable, he wouldn't have put it on the agenda the way he did. So I believe in his mind, he's wondering how, as a municipality, we can make them bear this cost when it, had nothing to do with them or their decision-making. It was poor decision-making on the part of, someone, whether it be the original homeowner, the municipality. If we knew in 1969 that we were discharging all of the sewage into the fresh water, when those repairs were made and those lines were connected, why didn't someone in the city at that point say, what about these 4 houses that are sitting here? Did anyone check that? Where are the records on that? So I feel that we are being unreasonable, and I accept the fact that I have a vested interest in this to some extent, but I just think we're asking the wrong questions. And, whether or not we spread it out over time is irrelevant to whether these homeowners and property owners should be liable for this. So I just want to put that out there. Again, I'll be abstaining from the vote, but I think it's a good question, and I think it's a necessary question when we determine who actually pays for this.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Goza.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. I'm not a voting member of the committee, but the reality is the demographic of Oswego is that we're under the heaviest tax burdens. The water sewer rates are outrageous. Obviously, we all want clean air and fresh water, but the shame is that when hardworking people are driven to literally to the brink of poverty, okay? I don't know where you guys live or who your neighbors are, but on my block, it's apartments, there's heroin houses, there's working people that can barely get by. I talk to them every day. I go to their houses, they can't get limbs cut off, their trees are waiting a month for a work order. All they wanted to do was have their property look nice. They're telling me I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can't wait to get out of this town when I retire. I'm hearing this every day. And the demographics, if we got 17 or 20 houses on the east side, we need government that's responsible to the people. Like Mr. Johnson said, we have a duty to them as well. I'll tell you what, take the DEC and tell them to go back to Washington, D.C. or wherever in New York State with these environmental laws, putting it on the backs of the working people. Enough is enough. This is the last bastion right here, local government, to stand up for the people that live here. And I know the people, and a lot of them are leaving. Homeowners are surrounded by rental properties with negligent, totally negligent, landlords that don't care. Somebody's got to care. If we're not the people that care right here, we have to find a way. So I'll tell you what, I couldn't afford it myself. And we're working a couple jobs, a teacher, a city councilor. Unfortunately, when you're in public service, you don't get paid much at all, and everybody's scraping by. I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends. People live on my block, the neighbors that live there right now. So I'm sure you all see the same thing, unless you're living in some fancy development somewhere and you got enough money, you probably have a good sewer hookup. But the reality is there's going to be a lot of other people that can't. That is punitive. I agree with Councilor Hill. I agree with Councilor DeMassey. The other people who have spoken here tonight. We have to do something to make sure that we know who is responsible, and the homeowner should be the very last one on the line responsible for this if it can be proven that the city and municipalities in the past hasn't addressed this issue. To say you have to pay that even in a couple of years for a lot of people would be very difficult. So I'd like to say that right here, right now, because I don't know, you can talk about progress and you can repave streets, but the bottom line is this is a working class town. There's no more middle class hardly. It's an illusion almost. The bottom line is politicians are using that term all over from state. Middle class, middle class. You hear it in Albany, you hear it in Washington, because the middle class got gutted. And Oswego's got gutted about 18 years ago when Mohawk sold off all its non-nuclear assets, and that devolved, that 70% of the property tax base devolved right back down on the homeowners, and it's destroyed this community. Since my father was mayor to today, the last 2 mayors dropped the ball. They didn't stand up for the people. And even tonight, we're going to be talking about things like making Oswego a business-friendly community. This town has suffered greatly since my father left. And since Billy Barlow came in, he's the only one that stood up to try to turn this town around. So I'm here tonight saying I agree with these other people here, but we got to draw a line. We got to be realistic. These homeowners should not pay. I couldn't pay it myself.
Thank you. I see there's a hand up in the back.
I'm going to give you an example of what I was told up on A Street, right across from the hospital. I'm not going to mention his name, a homeowner. I think every house on the west side was pumping that stuff in the backyard. He had a leak. He addressed it to the city engineer, and the city engineer looked at the problem and walked away off into the sunset. He went because he didn't want to address it. okay? And he was the engineer in '69 too, by the way. So, without being too much on the city engineer, who is the hero of this town, anyway, those 3 houses or 4 houses down the Forks of the Road, I don't think any of them are worth more than $80,000 apiece. And your aunt's got to be retired, isn't she?
Nope.
No? Where's she work?
She works for a medical office.
Well, she's probably not making $100 grand a year, is she?
No.
Working for them people, you don't make any money anyway. But the thing is, those people down there, I'm sure, cannot come up with this bill right away. Okay? That's pretty much substantial down there. You go down and take a look at them houses. They're at the Forks of the Road. You know what that place has been like for 50, 60 years with them bars down there and everything? Why, hell, them college kids had a great time walking by those houses. The thing is, I think you ought to take it easy on these guys. Yeah, $25,000, that's nothing for this city, the way they're spending money left and right here. Go get a grant. Fund it with a grant or something. Help these people out. I kind of agree with you, John, and the thing is about the financial situation of people who work here. Okay? It has gone down. It's not going up here, as Tom Gillen said to me one time. Miles, big things are coming. Well, you know what, Gillen, and the rest of you guys, big things have left. Take a look.
Thank you.
You know what? Big time out.
Thank you again. Anybody else want to comment? Yes,
I
Councilor
just have
Hill.
one thing to add. We're talking about precedent as well, but I think we can point to other situations where, depending on how the liability of the situation pans out, and if there, we can determine that there was negligence on the part of the city. In other situations where that is determined, where a homeowner or a property owner would normally be required to pay, it is determined that the city does pay. Potholes, if it's determined that there's a prior report of a pothole and someone hits it, the city is obligated to take care of that damage.
Right.
On the part of plow damage, if it's determined that the driver of the city was negligent, I believe, in the
Actually,
way... Reckless.
Yeah.
Then, the city is obligated to pay. So if there was prior knowledge of this issue and that determination is made, there is already precedent in different areas. So I would just like to put that out there.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from anybody? Yes, Councilor DeMasi, one more time.
One more time. We just have to see if that would be the bottom line. My recommendation would be to table this. I know we don't have any time, or to find out, unless you give the real answer of, are we liable in any case? You've got to still, regardless of any of the emotion or anything, we cannot gift this, bottom line. We can't gift this to all 4 of those houses. If we aren't negligent, and it wasn't our responsibility to begin with, we pretty much answered the way it has to go. Whether we can go 10 years, however we could do it, I feel for them. I 110% agree, but we still can't gift it to them. So I guess we have to get the bottom line. If we're not, we're going to have to, we can't.
Let me just give you,
Yes.
I guess, some food for thought. It's my understanding that this work does need to be done, and there's some time sensitivity to it. We know what the general costs are, and the mayor's proposed appropriating the $25,000. Be my recommendation that at least that part of the resolution be adopted, so that, because ultimately the work has to be done. You still have time to figure out how or when and why perhaps the payments should be recouped or recovered, and adopt a policy. It's not a all or nothing proposition. In fact, what you actually have on your tablets is what was proposed, as Councilor Hill pointed out. It's just a movement of money and an authorization to have the work done. That, I think, is frankly the most important part of this discussion and debate. Figuring out how it's to be paid for, who's responsible, and all the rest of it. I do believe you have time to address that and work that out, and perhaps get some additional questions or investigation of why this was left this way for so many years.
All right, thank you very much. Another question, Councilor DeMasi?
So we couldn't actually go, can you go, take this money, perform it, get it done, and then go back to the homeowner and say, hey, we did it, but now we decided you're gonna pay this. If I was a homeowner, I'd say, I didn't give you permission to do that. You're stuck.
Understood, but there is, I think as Mr. Johnson pointed out, there are some obligations of the property owner. And again, we are a publicly owned treatment works. You know, so there are, I mean, this isn't just City of Oswego law or the charter. This has a background in state law. And you know, again, although it's shocking to know that, you know, we were directly discharging out into the rivers and lakes, I mean, frankly,
We swam in it.
much of the country was. I mean, that's why the EPA was developed in the 70s. Absolutely. So, no doubt about it. So my point in all this is that the work has to be done. The city's obligated to do the work. The question remains how that expense is to be recovered, if it's to be recovered, and under what parameters. And again, I think that issue can be resolved even after the fact. I mean, again, the $88 million consent order, that, if you look at it, none of us like it. None of us like getting that 200 plus you know, water and sewer bill every quarter, but that essentially is a pass-through to the ratepayers and the property owners as well. And again, I'm not defending any of it. I don't like it any more than any one of you do. But you know, those are issues that can be resolved at a later date. But I do think the work needs to be done, and the engineering department's, you know, certainly recommending it, and the DEC's mandating it.
All right, thank you very much. One more question, comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, this question's for Mr. Johnson.
That's correct.
Are the laterals there?
The city brought laterals over to the property because
How long ago?
just this past month.
Just the past month?
Yeah, the city brought the laterals over because they're going to pave 104.
Okay.
And so, rather than, you know, it's all in public space. We didn't go in any private
Right.
property.
Right.
But rather than wait for them to pave it and then have somebody go out and dig up the road, didn't make any sense.
Okay, so the simple answer here for me is they had no lateral before, now they do.
They have a
So
common...
they didn't have a choice before.
They've got a common lateral goes out the back of their property, and it connects to storm sewer, 66-inch Gardner Creek storm sewer.
But if they had a lateral 10 years ago and were notified that they had a lateral and didn't look up to it, that'd be a whole different story. I mean, we notify these residents when there is a lateral, and when we do a street that they haven't connected to. You normally do that, correct? You tell them they have to tie into, especially if it was a line that was maybe shared or whatever circumstance. You tell them there's a lateral in front of your house. You notify them.
Correct.
Okay, so they didn't have a
We
lateral.
can send them a letter directing them.
But they didn't have a lateral to tie into up until a month ago.
They didn't have a lateral, but we're not
Okay.
obligated to give them a lateral either. There's a sanitary sewer in front of their house within 100 feet. We can send them a letter directing them to connect to it. The only reason we haven't put the laterals in was save the highway from getting dug up again.
Well, I understand that, but notification might have not ever got to them is what we're saying, right? I mean, they might have not ever known that that was there.
They've recently all been alerted to the fact that there's an issue. Okay? We've gone in, we dye tested, we looked at the properties.
Okay.
We were pretty clear on what's going on.
Yeah.
All right? The reason we got there in the first place, when the lake level was high in 17, and we had a big rainstorm, the first lady in the house called the DDC and had a complaint, said the city's not doing something. Okay, so,
Yeah.
you know, so these laterals have to come off. They have to come off to store on the site.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other comments or questions? I think we beat this one to death here. I would recommend to go with our city attorney, Mr. Caracoli. He did a good job of explaining that tonight we can just vote and possibly pass the transfer of funds, and then at a later date try to come up with a resolution on how it's going to be reimbursed or paid. So with that said, can I have a motion on this? Councilor DeMasi, Councilor Wilmot. Call the roll, please.
Councilor Corradino?
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi?
Yes.
Councilor Hill?
Abstain.
Councilor Tesorario?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to the next item. Thomas Kells, DPW Commissioner, requests permission. Commissioner of Public Works, Parks and Recreation, is that what's up there?
To accept. Yeah.
Pickleball.
Yes, it's okay.
All right. Let me read what's on the agenda. That's a shorter version. The one I got is 16 lines. This is a lot closer. Thomas Kelly, DPW Commissioner, requests permission to accept an anonymous donation of $750 for use at the pickleball court. Commissioner Kells, did you want to say something?
I think it's great that they're stepping up and doing this. It's something they would like, and I see no problem with it.
Yeah, there was another section here. It said the donated funds total $750, which is probably not enough for a windscreen for the entire area, but should be enough to screen the west side fencing of the courts. So they're donating $750 to do as much of the, put up as much as the windscreen. So it's basically a gift to the city. Any questions, comments on this one? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Councilor Tesorario, Councilor Hill, please call the roll.
Councilor Corradino?
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi?
Yes.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Tesorario?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Okay, the last item, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests discussion and funding approval for the Oswego West Pierhead Lighthouse exterior restoration and painting project. And I believe Mr. Rudzik is here to talk about that.
Thank you very much. As you know, the City of Oswego was awarded funding in 2016, for the waterfront revitalization efforts. We were awarded $590,000 towards a nearly $1.2 million project. And within that award, there are 5 construction-related activities. And the focus of this communication tonight is one of those activities, which is the renovation of the exterior of the lighthouse. So my office with Tim Stahl, my deputy director, has been working with the Maritime Museum as well as Onondaga County Purchasing to put together a bid package. This is something that my office did in conjunction with Onondaga County Purchasing to put together a bid package for 6 different scopes of work for the exterior renovation of the lighthouse. And the way we packaged that bid package is we wanted to have an overall cost of what it would cost to do the entire 6 scope together, as well as each scope itemized separately. So that way, if the bid came back high or whatever, we can determine what scope of work we can fit within our budget. So we received 3 bids back for the lighthouse restoration, and the bids were kind of all over the place, which we expected due to the timing and due to the end of the year. But there was one bid that came back that was within close to our budget range. And so out of that 6 scopes of work, my recommendation is to select 2 scopes, which Scope 1 and Scope 2 covers the sealing and restoration and painting of the lighthouse roof. And then scope 2, which is the painting, restoration, and sealing of the tower and gallery of the lighthouse, which is essentially the exterior walls all the way up to essentially the tower, as well as including the floor deck and the exterior window shutters and the first floor exterior doors. The other scope 3, 4, and 5, and 6 were essentially painting and sealing the gutters, painting the interior of the windows, and doing a lot of concrete work. So based on the bids that we received and the cost, we're only recommending to do scope 1 and 2, which again, with that scope, we feel, my office feels that we can accomplish a lot in terms of the aesthetics of the lighthouse, because you're really capturing most of the exterior that you see, which is the roof and the walls and the towers and the windows. So, I mean, the bid, the PS Bruckle Incorporated, which is the bid, a company that we're going to select to award the bid to, they've been very responsive and they're willing to work with us. Again, based on that bid, the overall project cost for scope 1 and 2 is $225,600 based on that amount. And so since this is a reimbursable grant, the city needs to upfront the cost. And based on the previous award grant, as well as another grant that we were able to secure, 175 out of that 225,600 will be reimbursed back to the city. So my request to the council is to approve a budget amendment to the capital fund account for the 225,600, so that way we can issue a notice to proceed, and they are looking to do the work in the next couple of weeks. They're looking to get ready and done, and they said their timeline is within next, they can have it complete within 4 to 6 weeks, which coincides right before the end of October, which is when a lot of the boating activity stops anyways. So, I mean, if we're able to move forward, we can get one of the items that the Mayor Barlow touted in his State of the City speech is the exterior renovation of the lighthouse, and this is one of the projects that will come to fruition pretty quickly.
Very good. Before I open it up to the public, are there any questions from the council for Mr. Rudzik? Seeing none, are there anybody in the audience? I see somebody that might want to say something.
Good evening. Well, this is an exciting bit of progress and news. We know that Justin and Tim have been working very hard to get this together, and the possibility of having this done this fall is just so fantastic. I'm sure some of you who might have Spectrum News, they are using the lighthouse as their feature Oswego image, and it's looking pretty sad. So to have that painted and have our, shining star representing Oswego looking as good as it should be is pretty darn exciting. This is work that our volunteers cannot possibly do. So we have to have professionals come in and make this work happen. We are all in agreement. We have volunteers here. Some of them scrape and paint things and refinish wood. Some of them give lighthouse tours. We're willing to shut down whenever we need to, because these folks want to get in and get going, and we will shut down the tours, the work crew, whatever it takes, because this is really important to our organization as well. With that said, this weekend, the museum partnered with Oswego Expeditions, and we put on a lighthouse bus excursion challenge. And we had a full bus that's 48 passengers, and we went west all the way to 30 Mile Point the one day and came back to Oswego. These folks had a little refreshment, and then we took them out to the lighthouse in the evening. Then yesterday we went that way, east, and went all the way to Rock Island. And I'll tell you where these people came from. New Jersey, Kentucky, Indiana, Fulton, of course, Oswego, Georgia, Michigan, Virginia, Long Island, Syracuse, Maryland, California, Mexico, New York, Manlius, New York, and Pennsylvania. We had a gentleman who's originally from Sri Lanka, but he came here from Washington, D.C. He took 2 trains to get here, and then in Syracuse he got on a bus to make it to this trip. So this is the potential of what our community can have. And these folks stayed in hotels, and they ate locally, and they spent money here. Did they spend money at the other lighthouses? Of course. They are lighthouse enthusiasts, and they will support the other lighthouses as well. But this is, we're bringing in people from out of town to come and enjoy our community. And I have to tell you, they were absolutely thrilled and impressed with what we had to offer. So this is just an exciting step in the right direction. Rick, did you have anything? Dwayne? Just
There was a lot of people that from as I said, all these areas that were involved in this wonderful facility that you have out there. The point being here is that it's so important that this work gets done now, because this is a very substantial facility, building, structure, whatever you may want to call it, but it's in very need of dire repairs. Because if it doesn't get done, it's going to continue to go down, and pretty soon we won't have any lighthouse at all. So I think it's very important that this proceed and we get this work done as soon as possible. And again, it's beyond the scope of any volunteers at this time, because of lead days of paint and a few other things, also beyond the expertise of our volunteers. So my interest is to see that this beautiful structure be maintained and taken care of the way it should be.
I would like to thank the council members and Justin and his crew for the support that we've gotten. I know that the group of volunteers that I supervise have put in a lot of their time and their hearts and pretty much souls into this thing, trying to get it repaired and put it back into a condition that the city can be proud of. I would add the structure, the painting, beautification of it. It's important. Sealing the roof, because at the presentation that we did last month and talking to the council, the roof has been leaking, and that obviously causes damage to the work that we've done on the inside. And very grateful for this next step and having this part of the repair work being done. But don't forget item 3, 4, 5, and 6, because we have issues with the deck that leaks, and we've been putting Band-Aids on that for the last 5 years, and we have issues because of that leakage in the caisson. So as Dwayne indicated, that if those repairs don't get done, the structure won't stay standing forever. So I hope that we keep moving forward with the city's help, and we'll do everything that we can to take care of it in the interim to make sure this process gets finished. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank Kevin Caracoli, who's also put some blood, sweat, and tears into the lighthouse as well.
Thank you.
And I'll do the resolution.
On that note, any other comments, issues? Nothing? How about a motion? Councillor Hill, Councillor Tesorario. Please call the roll.
Councillor Corradino,
Yes.
Councillor Damasi,
Yes.
Councillor Hill,
Yes.
Councillor Tesorario,
Yes.
Councillor Wilmot.
Yes.
All right, at this time, is there any other items you need to discuss for this committee? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Councilor Tesorio, Councilor Damasi. Please call the roll.
Councilor Corradino?
Yes.
Councilor Damasi?
Yes.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Tesorio?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to call the Physical Services Committee meeting for August 6, 2018 to order. Please call the roll. No problem.
Councilor Hill?
Here.
Councilor Wilmot?
Here.
Councilor Damasi?
Here.
Councilor Gozick?
Here.
Could I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 16, 2018 committee meeting? Councilor Wilmot, Councilor Gozick. Yep, please call the roll.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor Damasi?
Yes.
Councilor Gozick?
Yes.
Is there any old business to come before this committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Item number 1, the Engineering Department received a request for use of public space submitted by John Josh, owner of commercial property located at 156 West 2nd Street, for a 12-foot by 25-foot 7-inch awning to cover the dining area between the curb and right-of-way, as shown on the attached site plan. Is there anyone to speak to this? Mr. Johnson, did you have anything you'd like to say?
The restaurant wants to put an awning that would be taken down during the inclement weather. It would stay up. It's not apparently not retractable, but they want to put it up, for spring, summer, and into the fall, so that they can, eat underneath it if it's raining a little bit. So that's the idea. They want to extend it over. There's enough room to leave about a 6-foot sidewalk, walking area. So that's the request.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with the request?
I don't really have a concern with it so much as, people want to sit outside and eat in a nice weather like that. Suppose if it's raining hard, the guy walking alongside of it might get a little wet, but if it's raining, he's going to get wet anyway. But I don't see a real issue with it.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Councilor Wilmot.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know we have other restaurants that have similar things out there. Are there any other requirements that we've stipulated on those restaurants as far as how far out the sidewalk they can come?
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe Councilor Corradino could speak to that. Are you aware of any additional requirements, or are they handled case by case?
It's a case by case, because obviously every sidewalk is different.
Okay.
I just didn't want to approve something that maybe we denied somebody at some other point.
Okay.
Good
Thank
part
you.
is the insurance is all included if anything were to happen, so we're safe.
And these property owners do a fantastic job of maintaining their properties, and I can't recall any issues with this particular location.
Yes, I do.
Any questions or concerns from the public? Okay, can I take a motion, please? Councilor Damasi, Councilor Wilmot. Please call the roll.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor Damasi?
Yes.
Councilor Gozick?
Yes.
Item number 2, the Engineering Department received a request from Robert McGrath, property owner of 124 West 2nd Street, located in the 3rd Ward, requesting approval of a projecting sign in public space pursuant to Section 280-63 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Johnson, again?
This again is a request to hang a sign for his building, for his business.
Last year.
Sorry.
And the only thing they need to do is have an attachment detail that the code department can agree upon. This is something they worked out a few years back for signs that hang off the building. So it will be in public space because the building front is the right-of-way line. And so.
Okay. Yeah, there was an image of the sign in your packet, so everyone hopefully had a chance to look at that. Were there any questions or concerns from the council? From the public? Okay, could I take a motion, please? Councilor Gozick, Councilor Damasi.
Counselor Hill,
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot,
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Item number 3, the Special Events Committee has received a request from Jerry Millar regarding the Porch Fest event to be held Sunday, September 23rd, 2018, from noon to 6 p.m. The event has requested a waiver from the noise ordinance for the area location of the planned Porch Fest. Mr. Rudzik.
Thank you. As you know, this is a reoccurring event. It's been growing in popularity over the last couple of years. The only difference is this year is they're actually requesting a road closure, which I think is beneficial because there were a lot of people that attended the event. It would add another ambiance of safety to the otherwise popular event. The only comment I would have otherwise is to have the organizers submit their application well in advance before they start marketing and advertising in case there's any unforeseen issues with the event. We just want to make sure that, part of going through the council or through the committee process is to have permission to be able to promote the event, and you can't do that unless you come here. And because I can only submit the information to you, but you hold the ability to approve or deny. In the event that an event is marketed and promoted and it's denied, it just looks kind of silly. So I want to make sure that we are being diligent about making sure that we receive approvals before they are actually marketed and promoted. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from the council? Councilor Cordino.
Could you clarify for this particular event, how many days or months should they apply before they have the event? How many months?
I mean, in the application, it says at a minimum 90 days in advance, but I mean, depending on what they are requesting, it could be up to 120 days. But if it's a reoccurring event and it's a pretty straightforward thing, there's really no harm like some of the other events, such as the Lions Craft Club. I mean, they applied for their approval 2 months, 3 months in advance of that actual event. The prayer for the prodigals applied well in advance. So, I mean, if they know it's going to happen on a certain day in advance, there's no reason why not to apply. I mean, from a logistics standpoint, I mean, I just think it's better from a safety and also coordination with OPD, OFD, even DPW, just to be, because technically applying today for an event that's going to happen in less than 60 days theoretically wouldn't be able to be approved by council because it didn't follow the application process. But since this is a reoccurring event and it's a popular event, I would encourage you to approve it, but I think we need to make sure that, we're all being diligent about promoting events before they're actually approved.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? This is a very well attended event that I think a lot of members of the community appreciate, and I think it's a good thing for the community. Anything else from the public? Councilor.
Is it a well-defined area? I mean, it says here, West Side, Franklin, Montcalm neighborhood, porches, lawns, and driveways. You request a street closure, West 5th Street, from West Van Buren to West Seneca. Is that the defined area? For sure. So anything outside of that area wouldn't be considered in the noise ordinance?
Well, in terms of the road closure on that specific address, that was where most of the events or most of the performances happen. So that area, we noticed last year, there was a lot of people congregating in that area, so luckily they were able to do that. I mean, the other areas that are kind of on the periphery, I mean, most of the people are, aware, so.
Just, if it was defined, people that, you could say, hey, this is the square area or rectangle area that we're going to have this, and, anything outside of that wouldn't be allowed. That's all I'm saying. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Could I take a motion, please? Councilor DeMassey, Councilor Gozick.
Counselor
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot,
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Item number 4, the Special Events Committee has received a request from Madison Klein, representative for Alpha Epsilon Phi, for use of Brightbeck Park on Saturday, September 22nd, 2018, in order to host AE Festival.
This is a new event, promoted by the sorority or fraternity of SUNY Oswego to raise awareness, and requesting use of Brightbeck Park. and we coordinated with DPW to see if there was any issues with the use of space on that specific day, and there was none that we had noted. So, I mean, again, it's a pretty straightforward event using public space in that area to raise awareness, so there's really no concern on our end.
I see they're expecting 1,000 attendees. Does that trigger any additional need for public safety?
No, the safety number is, the critical mass is technically 5,000.
Okay. Are there any questions or concerns from the council?
I mean, I will say one of the things that we do out of my office for all special events is we send out a week ahead of time before that event, as well as before it even comes to committee, we notify DPW, OPD, OFD, we even copy Councilor Hill on those emails to let them know about these kinds of events coming down, so if there's any concerns or questions to come back to us. There's been some communication with that. I mean, I think that communication could be a little bit better with all of the department to make sure that, you know, because sometimes I find myself going back, well, not me specifically, my office, going back to asking, just double checking that are there any issues. Because we want to make sure, you know, part of our due diligence is we're reaching out to everybody, but even beforehand, like, let's say there was an event this weekend, Lisa Donabella from my office is sending out an email Monday morning to notify people, all the departments, that there is a pending event that weekend, just to remind people. So we're doing a lot of communication on our end. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. You know, we're not making decisions in a vacuum. We're trying to involve as many departments as we can.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from the public? Okay, could I take a motion, please? Councilor DeMasi, Councilor Wilmot.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi?
Yes.
Councilor Gossett?
Yes.
Item number 5, the Special Events Committee received a request from Joanne Goplin and the ORA to organize a party in the park block party for Saturday, September 15, 2018. Mr. Rudzik?
So this is a typical request for a block party, but it's not a block party. They're requesting the use of public space at the park, and but the idea is to have a block party-like atmosphere, like, you know, you'll see in the next request, where we typically close off streets for a block party. They're having a block party environment, but they're just doing it at the park. So I did reach out to OPD, Chief DeCare, about, because they were planning to serve alcohol, and they had requested a buffer zone of essentially nearly half of the park, and Chief DeCare didn't see an issue with that as long as it's properly marked and identified. So if he didn't have an issue with it, I certainly am not going to have an issue with it. I mean, it's a block party event. It's part of the Oswego Renaissance Association's promotion event. You know, when each block has received an award for their grant, they get together and have a block party to celebrate that and to have that community participation. So this is one of it, but it's more of an elaborate scale because they're requesting it at the park. They're serving alcohol as well as requesting the city bandstand to have a couple of musical performances as well. So, but everything else is fine.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Councilor Gozi.
And they are paid, I do see that they have the fees covered, that they're going to pay for the bandstand and such, so no problem.
Councilor
I
Gozi.
just point of clarification, so if people are walking by, are they welcome to stop, or is it like a, do you know what I'm saying? It's a big park and people wandering around. I mean, is it open? I mean, you know, or is it supposed to be the buffer keeps it so that just those people live there? I was just wondering, since it is the park and, you know, it's September, you know, whatever, it's so nice out, people might be Indian summer, might be nice enough where, you know, there could be quite a few people in the park.
I mean, I would say, you know, it would be similar to, you know, if you wanted to have a private birthday party at Brightback Park and not necessarily reserve anything, you're having a gathering over here. I mean, a block party, while it's going to be more glorified than a birthday party, but it'll be that same kind of atmosphere. I mean, it's a public space. I mean, you're able to gather at that public space and have a good time. It's just that because they're requesting a more organized event and having a city bandstand, so it just needs to go through the common council process. But to me, it's more of a, you know, a organization, a party for recognition and enjoyment. So,
they won't mind if people are sitting on the other side of the park, though. It sounds like.
I mean, if you happen to be walking by at that park that day and you want to stop by and have a few drinks and some grub, knock yourself out, I'm sure ORA group wouldn't turn you away.
My only concern is the application specifically says no, where it says, are you planning to sell or service alcohol?
What's that?
The application, actually, they indicated no for alcohol. And that would require, the resolution should require a waiver of the open container?
Yeah.
Is that park, is it?
So the resolution, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't typically attach the resolution to a lot of my communications, because we still work out some of those details, and that's what I had mentioned. That was the new information from Chief DeCare that came through. I mean, that block party organizer reached out to me and said, hey, can we still do this? And I reached out to Chief DeCare. As long as they follow the resolution will say they're requesting a waiver of the open container law, but they also need to file the necessary paperwork at the OPD, so.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions or concerns from the public? Okay, I'll take a motion, please. Councilor Gozick, Councilor DeMassey.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey?
Yes.
Councilor Gossick?
Yes.
Item number 6, the Community Development Office has received a request from Nathan Beasley, Chapter Captain of Team Red, White, and Blue, for use of public space in order to host the 3rd Annual 9/11 Remembrance Run to be held Sunday, September 9th, 2018. Mr. Rudzik?
This is a reoccurring event. It's happened for the last couple of years with the Red, White, and Blue team. And typically the law enforcement agencies partner with them and they do the run with them. So all there really is, they're going to be running in the street but with law enforcement, so there's really no need for road closures or any of those kind of things, but it's a reoccurring event just to commemorate, 9/11.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from the council or the public? Okay, I'll take a motion. Councilor DeMassey, Councilor Wilmot.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey?
Yes.
Councilor Gossick?
Yes.
Item number 7, the Special Events Committee received a request from John Fitzgibbons to organize a neighborhood block party sponsored by the Oswego Renaissance Association for Saturday, September 9th, 2018. Mr. Rudzik.
So this is a typical block party request that we would receive through the ORA, where they're requesting road closures on a certain day at a certain location for a period of time. And this is pretty straightforward to what we've received in the past. There's no additional requirements. I mean, it's a neighborhood gathering to really celebrate the community. That's pretty much it.
And we've received approval from all the neighbors in that area that's going to be closed off?
One of the things that we do is after it goes through this process, we reach out to everyone that had a block party or do road closures to make sure that they're reaching out and having that conversation with the neighbors to let them know that the road's going to be closed.
Good. Any questions or concerns from the council? Councilor Wilmot.
Not a concern, a comment. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Fitzgibbons. Kind of took me for a little tour of his neighborhood, and I just want to note that he's doing a fantastic job down there, reaching out further and further, through the Renaissance and getting more people involved down there. I think it's a really great thing he's doing.
That's great. Excellent. Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, I'll take a motion. Councilor Gozick, Councilor DeMassey.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey?
Yes.
Councilor Gossick?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I want to apologize for the number of communications that came from special events. I was busy in the last couple of weeks working on a CFA application, so that's why you have a whole flux of them coming in. So I just wanted to say sorry.
Thanks. Okay, item number 8. Thomas Kells, DPW Commissioner, received a request from Roger Akins to place a memorial bench in Brightbeck Park in memory of his wife, Tracy Jane Akins, Busky. And I do have an email on this request, and I'd just like to read a little bit of it. And this is from Roger. And it says, my name is Roger Akins. I'm writing you this email to ask for approval to donate a park bench to Brightbeck in honor of my wife, Tracy Jane Akins, and a little history about my wife. Tracy was a proud, lifelong resident of Oswego. She graduated from Oswego High School. She obtained a bachelor's degree from Oswego State and then went on to Syracuse University and obtained her master's degree in nursing and then became a nurse practitioner. She was an employee of the Oswego Hospital maternity and delivery floor Over the course of her career, she assisted many families with the birth of their children. She also worked as a nurse practitioner for Oswego Health at their parish and Mexico offices and at Alcan Novellas part-time when Sue Naylor and Lynn Eggert Morris were on vacation. Tracy and I were married under the bell at Brightbeck Park on Valentine's Day 2005. Judge McCarthy married us during a snowy, slushy, rainy day afternoon, but it was beautiful. In 2005, Tracy gave birth to our son, Declan, and then in 2007 gave birth to our daughter, Quinn. Both children delivered by friend Dr. Dan Cody at Oswego Hospital. I will never forget, on May 18, 2009, Tracy was diagnosed with breast cancer. The world stopped for us. We cried, we hugged, we swore, and then she started to fight. Tracy treated and fought to survive to see her children grow up. She cherished all of the walks and park events at the park. Unfortunately, on November 11, 2016, Tracy succumbed to the disease. She loved the city of Oswego and loved Brightbeck Park, the sunsets and the beauty of the waterfront. So please give this request consideration. It's the least I can do to show honor and respect for my loving wife. God bless her. Respectfully, Roger Akins. So, I know Tracy as a customer, and before she passed away, she came in and had some custom necklaces made for her kids with special messages on them. It was the most heartbreaking thing we've ever done. Those children, they were just, it was beautiful. So, Doug, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No. Thanks, Scott. If anybody knew Tracy, she was the toughest person I ever met in my life. Her kids didn't know her when she wasn't sick. I took her to chemo every week for 7 years. Her type of cancer is usually a 2 to 4 year lifespan. She went 7.5. She refused to go. But all I have left to say is I would appreciate your support, but hug your kids no matter how old they get. You never know.
Thank you. In the past we've talked about Brightbeck and the proximity of benches to each other, how many are there, and what I've noticed in touring the improvements that have been made to the park, there are some new opportunities for appropriate spaces for benches that I think we can certainly approve. I think Commissioner Kells would agree that with the additional stage and some of the new platforms that there are appropriate locations, and not where they're concentrated at the one end, but we have 2 requests tonight, but both of them were pretty vague as far as just being placed in the park. So I would recommend that we approve both of the requests, understanding that the density can be modified a little bit given what we've done at the park. So are there any questions or concerns, Councilor?
I'd just like to say one thing. Doug Buskey's been a personal friend of mine for 40-some years. What he went through with his daughter and the journey that they fought, I think this is a tremendous thing. And it's a tremendous tribute to your daughter. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Could I take a motion, please? Councilor DeMasi, Councilor Gozi.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi?
Yes.
Councilor Gossick?
Yes.
Item number 9, Thomas Kells, DPW Commissioner, received a request from Thomas Morningham to place a memorial bench in Brightbeck Park in a spot pointing toward the water in memory of his grandfather, Richard Hibbert. Again, same idea. I think we have some newly opened up space. This was just facing the water, so I think there's plenty of opportunity for that without making it look cluttered or being detrimental on the density of benches. Are there any questions or concerns? Okay, take a motion, please. Councilor DeMasi, Councilor Wilmot.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi?
Yes.
Councilor Gossick?
Yes.
Item number 10 has been pulled, just so everyone knows, and there is an add-on, so there's a new item number 10. And this is the Youth Bureau is requesting use of public space in Civic Plaza on Saturday, August 18, 2018, in order to host a Kids Chalk Day. Very simple request. Jennifer Lacerdo from the Youth Bureau is looking to have permission to use the area to just allow kids to draw on the pavement before they go back to school. So very simple. There shouldn't be any issues or or problems with that. Are there any questions or concerns? Okay, I'll take a motion. Councilor Wilmot, Councilor Gozick.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi?
Yes.
Councilor Gossick?
Yes.
Is there any other business to come before this committee? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councilor DeMasi and Councilor Wilmot.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilor DeMasi?
Yes.
Councilor Gossick?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the Planning and Development Committee meeting, August 6, 2018, to order. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilor Tesorario?
Here.
Councilor Corradino?
Here.
Councilor McBranty? Sorry.
Nicely done. Here.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the July 16, 2018 committee meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Councilor Cordino, Councilor McBurney.
Councilor Tesorario?
Yes.
Councilor Corradino?
Yes.
Councilor McBranty?
Yes.
Is there any old business that needs to come before this committee this evening? I see none. We'll go right to the one item we have. Councilor McBurney requests discussion regarding placing a 6-month moratorium on accepting new or action on pending applications for businesses requesting special permit use for drive-through services. Is there any comments? Councilor McBurney, you want to take this?
So I'm requesting discussion of a 6-month moratorium on special permit use for drive-through service in the city of Oswego, pending the completion of the City of Oswego's comprehensive zoning code rewrite currently in progress. As the state of New York recognizes that municipalities in planning for the community's control of future development can use a moratorium to preserve the status quo for a reasonable time while the city completes the zoning code rewrite, free from applications for permits under the existing code, rushing to develop land under current use rules that the community is in the process of changing. As the city zoning code rewrite is expected to be completed, submitted for council and public review, and adopted in the very near future, the Common Council is within its responsibility to impose such a moratorium for a specific, limited amount of time, such as will allow the successful completion of the zoning code rewrite. At the current time, no proposed project is in an active construction phase, and this timely request for a short breather will allow the city to complete its ongoing zoning rewrite for the broadest possible benefit to the city of Oswego.
Any other comments from the council? From the audience? I see none? Okay.
Are you accept?
I want to say thank you to Susan for Councilor McBurney for bringing this up. As you know, there's a strong and passionate group of concerned citizens that have a serious concern about this drive-through. And you know, you all are working so hard on getting the zoning together, and first it was going to be May and June and July, and you know, and I understand everything takes more time than anticipated, but to have something of this magnitude go through without pausing and considering how that new zoning would affect something like this, I would hope that the council would consider taking their time on this. This is a big thing, and if it goes through, the changes on that corner are going to be dramatic. No doubt about it. I understand you have some major concerns, and I know that there's contracts underway, you know, private contracts and whatnot, but the city has a right to have some concern about what goes on in the community and how that affects the safety of their citizens. So I would hope that you would consider this discussion and think about the people that you've interacted with over the past 6 months and how they feel about this project. So I do hope that the council will consider the words of the folks out in the community on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Council? Rob? Councilor Cordino?
I wanted to thank Councilor McBurney for forwarding over 20 pages of documentation on this particular resolution. I spent probably an hour reading it this afternoon. Unfortunately, it wasn't air conditioned where I was. But that certainly opened my eyes to a lot of different issues that could affect this. So thank you for all that homework and the work you did. I know you probably had the day off and you probably worked on this a long time. So thanks again for supplying that information to the council. Thank you.
Councilor Gozick?
Yeah, I would like to hear more. If Attorney Caracoli is open to some questions. I was just wondering, looking at this, I got to talk to Susan a little bit before the meeting, and obviously, I'm a supporter of historic preservation, maintaining the historic nature of our downtown, the integrity of our architecture, our cultural resources. But at the same time, I sit here and I represent the city of Oswego as a legislator. And this is a legislative branch of government, and even my own personal views on economics, don't hold there. I mean, we live in a free market society, and my concern is, the private property. I've been to a lot of the meetings, just, listen to the debates, and I've heard from all angles, but looking at, the issue of, it is privately owned, it's a private company that wants to develop the site, regardless of what's going there. I mean, I just don't, my concern is I don't know if there was a moratorium, is it going to open the city up to a lawsuit, because it seems directly targeted at this one project, whereas just, Mrs. Sweet, at the head of the zoning board, she pointed out, you don't think about it, but there's a drive-through right in the corner of First and Bridge Street. Okay, and again, open your eyes, because a lot of times they call food, restaurants, I mean, so going to these meetings, I learned a lot and listened to both sides, because I'll be honest with you, when it all started, I signed the petition. I don't know if anyone else here did, but that's how strongly I felt as a public citizen, as a person, that I was happy to sign the petition. But I have also learned a lot and listened, and at the same time, I know that a lot of damage was done in Oswego, as it received a reputation for being not very business friendly. And I got to admit, I mean, the years I've been here, I've been back here 15 years since I came back and started teaching. I haven't seen a lot of jobs created. I haven't seen a lot of new businesses come. So I mean, there's a lot at stake here. Obviously, when we look at what's coming with the new zoning codes. But my question is, I mean, is this going to be? I mean, can this company come back and say, we already received the variance, we got the special permit? I know everything's contingent upon the site plan being reviewed tomorrow night, but it's good to open the city up to a lawsuit. I talked to Susan before, and she'd mentioned that under the circumstances, because our zoning codes are being rewritten, that it wouldn't. But I'd like to hear from you, legally on that point, because it's a big concern of mine. I mean, how I would vote if this came through to the council. Obviously, would this be seen as discriminatory against this one project?
May I just clarify one thing? I didn't say that we wouldn't be open to a lawsuit. Okay.
We talked briefly.
I just simply said that our standing was good, would be good.
Right, because she mentioned because of the fact that under the circumstances where we have a zoning code rewrite in progress, it's overdue. So I mean, right. So I didn't mean to simplify that or misspeak or put words in Susan's mouth, but I just, what I'm asking for. I'm just, my biggest concern. It seems like this would be directly us intervening in the free market here, imposing our will. As a legislative branch of government, my concern is it seems pretty extreme, and I just don't know if we're overstepping our authority. And I know it's we have the right to do this, but I'm also concerned about our reputation as having development here. I know Mayor Barlow's worked hard to change that perception over the last 3 years.
A couple of issues, and again, another, it's a good debate, it's a good discussion to have. My primary regret is that this debate didn't occur 3, maybe 4 months ago. I think there's certainly a timing concern, and I want to be clear too, Councilor. I know you've attended a lot of those meetings, and maybe it's just semantics, but there were no variances that were needed for this particular project. I'm talking about the Dunkin' Donuts project. A special permit was required for consideration of the drive-through service. That was granted by the ZBA at their last meeting. So that issue, one could argue, is moot because the Zoning Board of Appeals granted that drive-through service. Now, somebody else could argue, well, wait a minute, the whole project isn't complete until the site plan is approved, which I tend to agree with. The drive-through service was one component of the overall site plan. That site plan is scheduled, it's on the agenda for tomorrow evening, the planning board. I'm not aware of any outstanding issues that won't be able to be addressed tomorrow, such that the planning board could render a final determination. I don't know. As I've said before, contrary to what's been reported, I don't have a vote. I advise this board, and I respond to questions, and I make sure that, as I've talked to many of you, whatever decision they make is supported by what we in the law call substantial evidence, that it's not arbitrary, that there's a basis for the decision that's made. Whether I agree with it or anyone else agrees with it, that the decision that's made is supported by the best evidence and applied to the facts in that particular matter. So, listen, I'm your attorney, I'm the city attorney. You can ask 10 other attorneys the same set of questions and you'll get, I dare say, 10 different answers. So I am not, and I'm proud enough not to think I'm the final say here. In fact, I can guarantee I wouldn't be the final say here. It would likely be a panel of 5 judges in Rochester, or maybe a panel of 7 judges in Albany, Board of Appeals. And this is not by way of a threat as much as it is probably the reality of it. You touched upon it. Would we face a lawsuit if we considered adopting a moratorium, as it would then apply to, in particular, the Dunkin' Donut project, but more generally, all building within the city of Oswego? Because the moratorium, if it were the direction of the council to go in that direction, would be created, drafted in a way that it applies broadly. And it's not just for one particular use or project. If it were, then it would be, frankly, thrown out, I think, in the first instance at the local trial court level. So, moratoria are, the elements are that they have to be specific to timing and the specific restriction. As Ms. McBrady has pointed out, there are certainly benefits working in the favor of adopting a moratoria when a community is in the midst of adopting a zoning regulations. That certainly provides some justification for doing that. But juxtaposed to the current application that's pending by, in this case, Dunkin' Donuts, certainly will raise a concern and a legal issue. If I were asked to put a bet on it, I'd say probably 100% certain that we would face a lawsuit if a moratorium was considered and adopted.
Yeah. Kevin, the way this is written, there'd be no Taco Bell.
I'd like to.
They couldn't start, or they couldn't even apply because we were having this. They have a drive-through service. We wouldn't be able to have that.
Yeah. Well, again, you're looking at the specific zoning districts and the uses that are applied within that district, and if you would need a drive-through service in order to operate, and you fell within those parameters, right. It's all similarly situated uses would be put on hold for a specific period of time. You know, a moratorium is not an endless restriction. It's designed to give a community an opportunity to kind of catch its breath and figure out, okay, do we have all of our bases covered? And that's why I said, you know, with respect, I think I mean, ideally, this discussion, in my opinion at least, should have been raised 3-4 months ago when we could have had a better handle on things. But it does invite a lawsuit. But I'm not saying that to scare you away from doing this either. I mean, you know, that's life. I mean, lawsuits happen, but you will be certainly. I can see anyone critical of this raising that as an issue. That seems that you're singling this organization out, this particular use out, this particular neighborhood out, and raises the issue of whether, you know, you're acting arbitrary. But you know, again, you all have the power and authority. It's certainly within your purview. You obviously are separate and independent from the planning and the zoning board. In the same sense, they are independent from you, and they have their own authority and jobs to do. And it just so happens that tomorrow night this matter is on the planning board agenda for what I believe would be a final action.
Is there any other questions? Comments? Linda? Councilor Tomasic?
I hate to say this because I haven't spoken public about it, but I can't support this, and there's many reasons why. And I built a business from the ground up, Port City Co-op, put a lot of work into it, worked with all of the businesses downtown, spent many times, good friends. I don't want to see any businesses close from it. Sometimes competition can be good. I don't think that they will. But I feel when you look at the businesses we have in our historic buildings as tattoo shops and things, that I feel any businesses are welcome in our community right now. Not only I don't care if it only brings 10 jobs in. I don't care how many tax dollars it brings in. I just feel like it would be, and I feel for everybody, but I just feel like I don't want to put a stop to anything that is done the correct way through the correct processes right now, just to prolong, let them happen. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions or comments?
Oh, it's okay. Wait.
You know, that intersection is the one that my husband and I use most often to leave our neighborhood to get across town. And I have to say, I think you're going to see some poor disabled person die. And I'm not saying that for drama. Go by that intersection sometimes at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning when people are more likely to be picking up their coffee, or 3 in the afternoon like when high school gets out. And it's fine. Go on your lunch hour and try to cross that street. We were there a few weeks ago, and the man was probably middle-aged. He had an obvious limp. We waited for him to cross. He was trying to go south for the gas station. We waited for him to cross, and a pickup truck, had the turn arrow. So other guy there, and actually honked at him as he tried to get across the street. And I'm going to die. And then they're going to say, well, you know, poor pedestrian, we'll be watching where he's going. I just think it's the wrong spot for that kind of business.
Thank you.
Only my opinion.
Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, I did have one question, but I also would like to address it. You know, regardless, whatever happens here, planning tomorrow night and the outcome, like Kevin said, I don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not going to presume to imagine what's going to happen. But whether it goes in or not, I hope we can see that corner addressed as a problem. So Kevin knows we went on a tour, a walking tour from Kingsford Park to address, like, you know, walkability in the city, ways to make it city more pedestrian friendly. And I mean, that really is a mess. But I think we really do need to get, just like on West First and Bridge, you know, we need to have like crosswalks painted clearly, maybe there's a way to bump the curbs out a little bit to slow the traffic, but also like timers, you know, the 15-second timers with the walk signs. I mean, regardless of what happens there, and even if it did go in, I think that could help alleviate a lot of the problems because, I mean, it's a mess, and it looks awful too. But anyway, what I wanted to ask, I had one last question, just relevant to the moratorium, because I do care a lot about this, and it's tough for me. I've been agonizing over it, to be honest with you, for the last, like, the last day and a half. I got a message from Susan about it. I looked back to the documentation with Waldis Law Firm from like February 17, 2017. One of the things I know, from what I understand, they don't want to release any of this piecemeal, but it did mention that they were going to be formulating and preparing an update to the existing city's zoning code, zoning map, and downtown design guidelines. I was just wondering, is there any way to get us insight, or they don't want to share any of this piecemeal? I mean, I was just wondering, with something like this, do you have any insights into what the downtown design guidelines are? I mean, do we have an inkling of what parts are done, what aren't done, what isn't done? You know what I mean? Because like you said before, at the time here, like this moratorium would seem reactionary, obviously, under the circumstances, but we do have this issue of the zoning code not being done yet. And, you know, we were under the impression, at least even from myself, I had looked, to be honest with you, and Mercedes knows this, we went in to look and talk with the assistant city attorney about preparing a preservation ordinance back in April. Met a couple times. I talked to the mayor, and he told me, I asked him what he thought about it, and he said, you know, the zoning code is supposed to be unveiled at the end of May, early June. And I understand everything in government takes longer, so, you know, it's been paid for as far as I can tell. We transferred the money, $105,000 was paid, it's taking a little longer. That's the way it goes. But unfortunately, because of the conjunction of all these different events happening right here with the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, rewrite, I mean, issues like this, so many citizens have been concerned. Do you have any insights into this downtown design guidelines and what it might hold? Because, you know, what their philosophy is on this?
Yeah, I mean, the committee looking into this has met with folks with the Waldis Law Firm. We've met with Bergman Associates, who's actually putting together those guidelines with illustrations, and at this point I'm not aware of a draft that has everything complete that we could roll out or share. The last time we met, and I don't know if, I think I was at the last meeting, believe that it was going to be, I thought they said at least within a month to 2 months. And so it's probably right in this coming month, in the month of August, that we're hoping to have some type of a draft of those design guidelines. Now, the one thing that we wanted to make clear was that these are not necessarily aspirational, but that these were mandated, but not solely to the exclusion of everything else. So let me give you an example. Color palettes. All right. At one point, an earlier discussion had, if you were going to use a color scheme, that you could only pick from, I don't know, half a dozen colors. And we said, well, why? Because I think it was Paul Stewart who pointed out, if you look closely at their house, he's got 7 different colors on his house alone. They're all within a palette, but, you know, to exclude something like that just doesn't seem, it seems counterproductive. So, not to be aspirational that you should use this, but you must use multiple different choices of color palettes. I mean, we're not saying you must use only one palette or one array. You can choose from several, but you must choose one of these, right? So, I mean, that's maybe that's one example. I don't know.
So it's not as restrictive as it would have been before. So,
well,
but it's still.
But no, before the problem with candidly, the design guidelines before was that we found that they were aspirational, that you should do this or you may do that, and it didn't mandate certain things. And so what we believe we'll see one of the significant changes to those guidelines is mandating further use of whatever it is, design guidelines, whether it be color, whether it be architectural standards or any of the rest of it. So, but I have not seen a draft in all of its glory, so to speak. We're waiting for Bergman to give us the final draft with the illustrations and all the rest of it. We're being told that it should occur this month, but
No, thank you. I was just wondering, because when I went back there looking at it, I was just wondering if we'd seen it and it prohibited such a thing, and it's going to be out this month. It might not hinder business development, because I got to be honest, it seems to me as a bit extreme. A moratorium, considering the reputation Oswego's had and how hard the Barlow administration has worked to change that reputation and to try to attract, development investors and business, and to even halt it for a moment, to me, considering we've got a long way to go, I find that a tough pill to swallow, So I know that explains it well to me. I appreciate it. Hopefully, we do get it as soon as possible.
Any more questions or comments? Councilman McVerde.
I wanted to thank you all for entertaining this discussion and clarify. So the purpose of the moratorium is the state allows us to specify a specific land use in setting a moratorium. We don't have to set a moratorium on all development for 6 months. We are, in fact, allowed by the state to set a specific land use moratorium. We just aren't allowed to target a specific project. So as you pointed out, it would apply to Taco Bell, but it is for a very limited period of time. And when the zoning code process is completed, those projects are plugged into the new zoning code and approved or not approved based on the zoning code. So it's not saying, we think this is a good project, we think this is a bad project. It's saying we authorized $125,000-ish to start this process. We added another $60-some-odd thousand to this process this year. It's obviously of value to the community. It's something that we recognize, or not me, because I wasn't on that council, but Rob, you can recognize this. The council at the time recognized it as having value. So,
Councilor McVerde, these people at Taco Bell bought the land based on the fact that they were going to be able to put their business up. We're going to tell them they can't.
No, you're not saying. We're not saying you can't. We're saying we're putting a hold on.
A hold.
That's
so
what a moratorium
they've
is.
already purchased
a moratorium
the land.
is a specific thing for a specific amount of time, and it
how are you going to
ends
tell
when
them that
the
they got a
zoning code rewrite is
construction
done.
schedule? My point is, we can't tell them they can't start.
They'll lose money.
They've approved their project by our current laws. So now we're going to tell them, oh, by the way, we changed our mind?
It's not saying we changed our mind. It's just, especially in the example of Taco Bell, they're not planning on. We'll be done with this moratorium before they're ready to apply for a building permit in Oswego.
That's not correct.
Yeah.
All right. Any more discussion, comments? Councilor DeMasi?
I feel it wouldn't look good with the integrity of us as a council that we would be influencing, obviously, the write-up of the zoning. This goes back to, I feel like we would really be trying to influence what they put into that at this point. It would, we're doing this right before this project, and we would be influencing maybe a change in that they would assume could have come from any one of us or anything. I think that I personally feel as a counselor, I want to be right out of it. That let the process take its course for many reasons.
Thank you, Councilor. See no more questions. Can I get a...
So, first off, it just seems bizarre we're kind of arguing over fast food things. But, don't throw out this work. whatever happens tomorrow, this is important information to move forward with. This administration, this council is poised to make some major changes in this community that John will bring people with good jobs up here, okay? So that it will attract the kind of people we need here, not more fast food jobs. You know, the process with planning and zoning as just an average individual, hard to understand, frankly, because we went in there with arguments that seemed reasonable and made common sense. And that's where the over 2,000 people who signed those petitions said, how could we possibly do this? That makes no sense. The logic is not there. So we were shocked that it just kept going forward. And that, you know, the traffic study, rubber stamp, it's okay. You know, we're concerned about pedestrians. Don't worry about it. That's okay. So the integrity of the city through the planning and zoning is of concern. And I still am just kind of learning the relationship, and the zoning folks said, oh, we're representing the state. I don't know what the council's role is in any of this. I'm still trying to figure it out. And yeah, obviously we couldn't figure it out fast enough for the 6 months, you know, to have this conversation 6 months ago. So I'm hoping maybe you guys can figure it out. Because you're on the inside and you maybe understand the way the municipality relationship works with planning and zoning and all that. But I'm hoping that you will write that to zoning so that we're not in this predicament again.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor DeMasi?
I understand the passion about all of it, but until you're in the shoes and knowing the code and the reasons behind decisions and votes and so on, we just need to follow the process, I feel.
Thank you, Councilor. Any more questions or comments? Can I get a motion?
Are we making a motion just to vote it up or down?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We're making a motion just to vote it up or down.
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Second it?
Councilor Tesorio?
No, let me get this correct. We're voting this down?
You vote your own way.
Yes or no?
You're voting yes or no.
Well, I didn't hear the motion.
A motion to vote on the proposal, on
Your proposal?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilor Tesorio?
No.
Councilor Corradino?
No.
Councilor McBrady?
Yes.
Is there any other business that needs to come before this committee tonight? I see none. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Councilor Cordino, Councilor McBurdy.
Councilor Tesorio?
Yes.
Councilor Corradino?
Yes.
Councilor McBrady?
Yes.